In this lecture, we're going to learn about type aliases. And this is a technique we have in C++ to give alternative names to our types. Suppose, for example, we have this type, unsigned long int, and we say huge num, and we give it a literal we initialize this guy with. I don't know about you, but I really think this type is hard to type if you happen to be using this a lot in your C++ program. Fortunately, we have a way in C++ we can simplify this. The technique is to use type aliases. And the way to do that is to do something like this. You can say using, give this another alternative easy to type name, put an equal sign in between, and say your hard to type here. Once you have this, you can use huge int in your C++ program, and the compiler is going to automatically replace this with this hard to type here. And this is going to make this a little bit easier to work with. For example, if we go down here, we can declare another type and say huge int and give it a variable name. We can put an initializer in this, and we can really work with this easily. This is what type aliases are really about. So if you have types that are hard to type or hard to remember, or that you really find it convenient to work with, you can give them another name using this technique here. Before we head over to Visual Studio Code and try this out, I wanted to raise your awareness that we have an older way to do this, and that's using type def like you see here. We can basically do the same thing we had in the last slide, but now we are using a syntax that is really clunky and hard to keep straight in your brain. You have to say type def, you're going to put in the type you want to specify an alias for, and your alias is going to come after everything. And after that, you have to put a semicolon. Once you have this, you can use your alias like we do here, and it is going to work pretty fine. Now that you know this, we're going to head over to Visual Studio Code and actually play with us. Okay, here we are in our working directory. The current project is type aliases. We're going to grab our template files. Let's do that. We're going to put them in place, and we are going to open this in Visual Studio Code. We can just grab the folder here and drop that in Visual Studio Code, and it is going to open up. Now we have our main CPP file. We're going to open it, and we're going to clean it up a little bit. We're going to close the pane here on the left. We are going to set up some variable unsigned long int and initialize this guy with a number. Let's put in a really large number. I think this is going to do. The point here is that this guy is really hard to type. The type of this guy. Let's give it a variable name. Let's say huge number. And we can go down and print it if we want. Let's say huge number, and we can print it out. Say huge number here. We can try and build this. Let's use GCC to do that. You're going to see that the build is good. If we bring up a terminal, let's do that. We can clear and run rooster. We're going to have our number printed out here. But this type is really long to work with. I don't want to be typing unsigned long int because, for example, I am typing this 1,000 times in my source code. I don't want to type this. It is too long. One thing we can do is change this to say using huge int. I can say something like this and say equals and replace this type with huge int. And the syntax to do that is this. Once you do this and put a semicolon here, now I can say huge int and declare a type like this. And you see that Visual Studio Code is going to accept this. If we build this, you're going to see that it is going to work pretty fine. So let's clear and run rooster. You're going to see that it is going to work. And if we try to print the sizes of these guys, we're going to see that it is the same. Let's do that. We're going to say stdc out size of unsigned long int, and that's the size we're going to print here. Size of unsigned long int. Okay, we can do that. We can also print the size of huge int, our type alias. And we're going to see that it is going to print the same size. The build is good. We can clear and run rooster. We're going to see that the size is 8 for all these guys. Huge int is now an alias for unsigned long int. And you can use this technique to simplify your types if they happen to be clunky or really hard to work with. One thing I want you to know is that this is a newer syntax to work with type aliases in C++. This is what you should use. The syntax here saying using, putting in your alias, putting in an equal sign, and saying whatever you want to simplify, and putting a semicolon. This is the syntax you should use in modern C++. But there is an older way to do this, and that is using type def. I am going to comment this out, and I am going to say type def, and I am going to say whatever I am simplifying, so unsigned, long, int. And after that, I'm going to specify my alias, which is going to be huge int. And after I do this, you see that code is going to be good. We can build and run. Let's use GCC. See that GCC is going to take this, and we're going to run Rooster. We're going to get exactly the same thing. So these are two syntaxes we have to do the same thing, but this is an older syntax. I don't know about you, but I can't really keep track of this, because sometimes I don't know if I put my alias in front or after the type. And when I get this wrong, I get weird compiler errors. I think this is the reason why they introduced this newer syntax, which really looks like an assignment. If you look at this, it is really easy to think about, because we are taking a bad or long or hard to work with syntax and assigning that to a better syntax. This is how I think about this. But if you want, you can use type def. It is going to work, but it is not recommended because it is older C++ syntax. Okay, this is really all we set out to do in this lecture to raise your awareness on type aliases. Please do use them if they make your code better. We are going to stop here in this lecture. In the next one, we're going to try and recap what we saw in this chapter. Go ahead and finish up here and meet me there.